The world was on the brink of collapse. The skies grew dark, the seas roared with anger, and whispers of doom echoed across the earth. In the midst of it all, a young woman named Sophia Larson lay lifeless, her body broken in a tragic accident. But something impossible happened. She awoke. With no explanation, no warning, Sophia was pulled back from the afterlife, a divine message entrusted to her by none other than Jesus Christ himself. Her mission? To deliver a message of salvation to Elon Musk, the billionaire whose technological ambitions were slowly unraveling the fabric of humanity's future. But she wasn't alone. Dark forces, both human and supernatural, would stop at nothing to prevent her from succeeding. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, Sophia must find the strength to face evil, question her purpose, and ultimately decide the future of humankind. It was a cool, overcast evening in Granville, a small town in the heart of the Midwest. The fall leaves, painted in shades of gold and amber, clung to the trees as the first hints of winter made their way into the air. Sophia Larson, a 22-year-old student at the local university, had just finished a lecture on modern philosophy. Her mind was buzzing with thoughts about her upcoming thesis and the debates she had in class. But despite the mental stimulation, there was an undeniable feeling of exhaustion tugging at her. Sophia was used to the long days, running between classes, studying late into the night, and working part-time at a local coffee shop. She had big dreams of making a difference in the world, of one day becoming a voice for those who had none. It was something she had always known deep in her heart, even when no one around her understood it. But tonight was different. The rain had begun to fall heavily as she stepped out of the university building. She pulled her jacket tighter around her, trying to shield herself from the cold, the droplets streaming down her face as she made her way toward her car. She'd grown accustomed to driving in the rain, the rhythm of the wipers soothing, a strange sort of comfort when it felt like the world outside was falling apart. But tonight, it seemed the storm had a fury to it that she had never seen before. Sophia unlocked her old sedan and slid into the driver's seat, her hands still trembling from the emotional weight of the day. She adjusted the rearview mirror and started the engine, the low hum of the motor filling the silence around her. A few quiet moments passed before she pulled out onto the slick road. The rain fell in sheets, blurring the lines of the road, making everything look like a canvas of gray. The headlights barely pierced the gloom, and Sophia found herself squinting to make out the turns in front of her. As she navigated the winding streets, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling in her chest. It wasn't fear, she wasn't afraid, but something felt off, as if the world had shifted imperceptibly, and she was now just a passenger drifting along. The further she drove, the harder the rain fell, the wind howling against her car. She took a deep breath and tried to steady herself, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. There was something about the rhythm of driving in a storm that felt strangely meditative, but it was only then that she noticed the growing sense of unease. She tried to push it away, focusing instead on the road ahead. The streets were nearly empty, most people taking shelter from the storm at home or in a nearby diner. Just as she turned onto the final stretch of road before reaching her apartment, it happened. The sound was deafening, a sudden screech of tires. The headlights of a truck, speeding recklessly through the rain, appeared in front of her in an instant, a monstrous blur of motion. She swerved instinctively, but the slick road betrayed her, sending her car into a wild spin. Her heart slammed against her chest as the world seemed to slow, her body instinctively bracing for the impact. Her hands gripped the wheel, but the car's momentum carried it forward, careening off the road and into the path of the oncoming truck. And then, darkness. Sophia's last conscious thought was one of regret. It wasn't a regret about the choices she had made, nor a feeling of fear about what might come next. No, it was the thought that she had never had the chance to fulfill the dreams she had always held so tightly to. The world she had known was slipping away, and it felt as though there were so many things left unsaid, unfinished, and unanswered. When Sophia opened her eyes again, she didn't know where she was. The air was thick, heavy with a sense of warmth and stillness. The last thing she remembered was the crushing force of the truck's impact. But now, she was standing on a path of golden light, surrounded by an overwhelming sense of peace. The air was thick with love and serenity. She took a hesitant step forward, looking around, confused but not afraid. There were no sounds here, no rain, no wind. Everything was calm, and the atmosphere shimmered with an unearthly glow. Was this heaven? Sophia couldn't help but ask herself the question, but even as she did, she felt an odd certainty that she was not alone. As if hearing her silent question, a figure emerged from the mist ahead of her. He was tall, with a radiant glow that made it impossible to look directly at him. His face was kind, full of compassion, and yet there was an authority to him that she could not deny. Jesus. The name came to her unbidden, but she knew it was true. This was him, the Savior, the Christ, and he was looking at her with eyes full of love and sorrow, as if he understood everything about her in an instant. "Sophia," he said, his voice like a melody that filled every corner of her soul, "you have not yet finished your work." Sophia's heart beat faster as the weight of the words sank in. Work? She was dead, wasn't she? "You must return," he continued, his tone gentle but firm. "The world is in peril. There is a message that must be delivered, one that you are chosen to carry. You must go back and deliver it to the one who is meant to hear it." Sophia's mind was racing, questions swirling in her thoughts. Return? But she was dead. She couldn't be alive again, could she? But before she could ask, he reached out his hand, and the warmth that radiated from it was like nothing she had ever felt. It was healing. It was peace. It was love. "You are not alone in this, Sophia," he said softly. "You carry a message of hope for the world, for mankind, and for him." Sophia didn't understand. Him? The one who will shape the future of humanity, Jesus said, his eyes looking not at her but through her. "Elon Musk." Sophia blinked, stunned. Elon Musk? The name was almost impossible to believe. He smiled at her, a soft, knowing smile. "You must deliver this message to him. The fate of the world depends on it." Before she could ask more, the light around her began to dim, and the warmth that had filled her being seemed to ebb away. "Go now, Sophia," Jesus said, his voice reverberating through her soul. "You are needed on earth, and time is running out." Suddenly, the golden light faded entirely, and Sophia felt herself being pulled away from that sacred place, back toward the darkness. Her eyes snapped open. Sophia gasped for air. She was back in her body, alive, but everything had changed. The air around her was cold, and the sounds of the hospital filled her ears. Her body was battered and broken, but her heart raced with a newfound purpose. Jesus had sent her back, and she had a mission to fulfill. Sophia's eyes fluttered open again, but this time the world felt different. The sterile lights above her flickered like distant stars, and the rhythmic beeping of the hospital monitors seemed to echo inside her skull, like a harsh reminder that everything had changed. She felt the dull pain of her broken body, but it was muted, overpowered by a feeling of something much greater pulsing through her. "I'm alive, but why?" The questions swirled inside her head like a storm, each one coming faster than she could process. But one thought stood above all others. Jesus had sent her back. That was the truth she couldn't deny. And in that truth, she understood that her life no longer belonged to her. It was part of something bigger, something divine. Her hands trembled as she reached up to touch her face, feeling the tender bruises on her skin. She was lying in a hospital bed, her body wrapped in bandages and casts. The pain was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the intensity of what she had just experienced. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts, and she looked up to see a nurse enter the room. The woman's face was warm and compassionate, though Sophia could tell there was confusion in her eyes as she surveyed the woman in front of her. "Miss Larson?" The nurse's voice was soft, cautious. "You've been unconscious for almost 3 days. We were preparing to tell your family that you might not make it." Sophia's heart clenched at the thought of her family, her mother and father, her little brother, Adam. She had barely been able to contact them before her accident. How would they react to this? To the knowledge that their daughter, their sister, had come back from the brink of death? But before she could respond, the nurse continued. "You're lucky to be alive. It's a miracle, honestly. The doctors, they don't understand how you survived." Sophia's lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "It wasn't luck. It wasn't a miracle from the doctors. It was something else." The nurse paused for a moment, giving her an odd look. "Are you okay?" she asked, her concern deepening. Sophia nodded, though she felt anything but okay. The pain in her body was nothing compared to the confusion swirling in her mind. But one thing was certain, she had to get out of here. She had a message, a mission, and it was time to begin. "I need to leave," she said, her voice firmer now. "I need to find someone." The nurse furrowed her brow. "Find someone? You need rest, Ms. Larson. You've been through a trauma, and you need time to heal." Sophia's mind was already elsewhere. She had to get to Elon Musk. The name burned in her mind like a brand she couldn't erase. Her purpose was clear now, more than ever. Jesus had entrusted her with something far greater than herself. Elon Musk, she needed to find him to deliver the message that could change the world. After a few more minutes of talking with the nurse, Sophia was able to convince them to discharge her. She could barely walk, but she didn't care. She wasn't the same person she had been 3 days ago, and she couldn't stay in this bed waiting for things to get better. The world was in peril, and she had been chosen to act. When she stepped out into the cool night air, the stars above seemed brighter. The wind felt different on her skin, as if the earth itself had shifted, and now the heavens were aligned for something monumental. She walked slowly, carefully, but she knew one thing above all: time was running out. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she quickly fumbled to pull it out. There were dozens of missed messages from her parents, from her friends, and among the sea of texts, one name stood out: Elon Musk. She stared at the text in disbelief. How did he know to reach out to her? The text was brief, just 2 words. "Are you okay?" Sophia swallowed hard, her heart racing. She quickly typed out a response, trying to find the right words. "I'm alive, but I need to speak to you. It's urgent." The text went out, and she stared at her phone, waiting for a response. Minutes passed. Then, finally, the phone buzzed again. "Come to the SpaceX headquarters. We need to talk." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. This was it, her first step in delivering the message, the moment she'd been sent back for. But as she made her way toward the bus station, a cold feeling washed over her. It was the same sensation she had felt before, when the darkness had taken her, when she had passed through the veil between life and death. Something wasn't right. She felt as though she were being watched. Her footsteps quickened, but so did the shadows. They stretched unnaturally, lurking in the corners of her vision. Sophia glanced around, her pulse quickening. A feeling of dread clawed at her insides. This wasn't just some coincidence. There were forces at work here that were far beyond her comprehension. Then she heard it, a whisper in the wind, a voice that seemed to come from nowhere. "You're too late, Sophia. You cannot stop what is coming." Her breath caught in her throat. She spun around, but the street was empty. There was no one there. Yet the feeling remained, like something dark was pulling at her, threatening to swallow her whole. Sophia could feel the weight of the message pressing on her chest. She had to keep moving. There was no turning back now. She had been sent back for a reason. She had to find Elon Musk. She had to tell him what she had been shown, what Jesus had revealed to her. With determination, she pushed the fear aside. There was no room for doubt now. As she boarded the bus and made her way to the SpaceX headquarters, she couldn't help but feel a strange calm wash over her. Jesus had already chosen her. She wasn't alone. But the dark presence that had been following her remained in the shadows, biding its time. Sophia's heart raced as the bus rumbled toward the SpaceX headquarters. Her fingers trembled, gripping the worn leather of her backpack, which carried only the essentials: clothes, a water bottle, and most importantly, a small Bible. It was a reminder of what she had learned in the otherworldly place she'd visited before she returned from death. It was the only anchor she had now. As the bus passed through the city's streets, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that clung to her. The dark presence was still following, lurking just beyond her vision. Her pulse quickened, but she focused on her mission. She had to keep her mind clear. She had to deliver the message. The SpaceX complex loomed ahead, its sleek, futuristic design standing in stark contrast to the city surrounding it. As the bus pulled up, she stepped off, taking a deep breath. She'd never felt more certain of her purpose, yet never more fearful. The shadows that had followed her now seemed closer, like a predator on her heels. She approached the entrance, her eyes scanning the building as she stepped into the lobby. The receptionist looked up, seemingly unfazed by her arrival. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Elon Musk," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "It's urgent." The receptionist hesitated, checking her computer. "Mr. Musk is in a meeting. But if it's urgent, I'll need to confirm your identity." Sophia smiled faintly, already feeling the weight of destiny press against her. "Tell him that Sophia Larson is here, and that it's a matter of life and death." The receptionist's eyes narrowed, but she relented, picking up the phone and dialing the number. "I'll let him know." Sophia's heart pounded in her chest as she waited. Her entire body felt charged, almost as though something unseen was guiding her every movement. And then, after what felt like an eternity, the receptionist looked up again. "Mr. Musk will see you now. Follow me." Sophia didn't wait. She followed the receptionist through the labyrinthine halls of SpaceX, her mind filled with the sacred message she was about to deliver. When they reached the office, the door opened. Inside, Elon Musk stood by a large window, looking out over the sprawling complex below. He turned slowly as she entered, and his gaze was sharp, calculating. The air between them was charged with something deeper than the usual business meeting. He knew, somehow, why she was here. "Sophia Larson," Elon said. His voice was steady, though there was something in his eyes that spoke of more than just curiosity. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Sophia nodded, her chest tightening. I have, and so have you. But I'm not here for small talk, Mr. Musk. I'm here to deliver a message, one that was given to me by Jesus Christ himself. Elon raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. Jesus Christ? Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, Jesus brought me back. He gave me a message for you, Mr. Musk. A message that the world needs to hear. A message about salvation and destruction. Elon stepped forward, intrigued but cautious. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm listening. Go on. Sophia took a deep breath. She knew this was it. She was about to say the words that could change everything. There is a great storm coming, Elon. A storm that will shake the very foundations of the world. Forces of darkness are rising. They want to bring about chaos, division, and suffering. But there is still hope. There is still time. Jesus wants you to know that you have a role to play in saving humanity, in leading the world to redemption. Elon's face grew somber as he listened, but he didn't interrupt. Sophia continued.
The Bible speaks of a time when nations will fall, when the earth will be torn apart by wars and natural disasters.
We're already seeing the signs, rising tensions, disasters, corruption. But the message Jesus gave me wasn't one of despair, it was one of action. A call to leadership, to courage, to unity. Sophia paused, her breath shallow. The words were pouring out of her, but she could feel the weight of them, the truth of them. She wasn't just telling Elon Musk a prophecy, she was giving him the key to save the world. He's chosen you, she said softly, her eyes locked onto his. You have the power to make a difference. You are called to lead the way through this darkness, to guide humanity toward the light. Elon stood still, his gaze fixed on Sophia. There was a long silence before he spoke again. How do I know this is real? How do I know you're not just another person trying to get me to invest in some crazy idea? Sophia's face softened and she took a step closer. You won't just know, Mr. Musk. You will feel it. You'll see the signs, and you will know that what I'm saying is the truth. Suddenly, the air seemed to shift. A strange chill crept through the room, and the distant hum of the building seemed to fade. For a moment, the two of them stood in silence, as if the entire universe was holding its breath. But just as the tension began to build, the lights in the room flickered, and the temperature dropped even further. Sophia felt a cold shiver race down her spine. Do you feel that? She whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Elon's expression darkened. Yes, I do. It's strange. Then, just as quickly as it came, the chill was gone. The lights returned to normal, and the building hummed with life once again. Sophia's eyes widened in realization. It's them, the dark forces. They know we're here. Elon's face was filled with both concern and disbelief. Who are they? Sophia took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The forces that oppose Jesus. The forces that want to see this world burn. They've been hunting me since I returned. They want to stop me from delivering this message. Before she could continue, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. The door to Elon's office burst open, and a group of men in dark suits stepped inside, more than a few of them wearing earpieces. They weren't just employees of SpaceX. These men were agents sent by an unknown power. The agents in dark suits filed into the room, their eyes scanning the space with cold precision. Elon stood tall, his usual confidence now replaced with an unease he couldn't quite shake. The presence of these men, these strangers, sent a shiver down his spine. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest. She knew who they were. They weren't just agents. They were the dark forces sent by the very ones she had been warned about, the ones who wanted to stop the message from reaching the world. She stepped forward, her voice unwavering. I know who you are, she said, her eyes locking onto the leader of the group. And I know why you're here. You won't stop me. The leader, a man with cold, calculating eyes, smirked as he took a step closer to her. You're mistaken, girl. You don't know the power you're playing with. You think this is about a message from some ancient text? This is about control. The power we wield is far greater than anything you can imagine. Sophia's hand instinctively went to the small Bible tucked under her arm. Her fingers traced the worn cover, a reminder of the truth she held in her heart. You can't stop the truth. You can't stop Jesus. The man laughed, a low, menacing sound that echoed in the room. You still believe in that fairy tale? Jesus didn't come to save humanity. He came to control it. And now we control the world. You and your little prophecies will not change that. Sophia stood her ground, but fear crept into her thoughts. She had seen what these forces were capable of. She had felt their dark influence since the moment she returned from death. And now they were here. Elon, sensing the rising tension, stepped forward. What do you want with us? He demanded, his voice sharp. What do you want from Sophia? The leader's smirk widened. What we want is simple. We want to keep the world under our thumb. We want to prevent the truth from spreading. If the world finds out what Sophia knows, it will crumble. People will rise up, leaders will fall, and we will lose our grip on the power we've worked so hard to accumulate. Sophia's eyes burned with determination. You will never succeed. The power of Jesus Christ will always triumph over darkness. The leader's smile faltered for a moment, but only for a moment. We shall see, but for now, we will make sure that you cannot speak of your message. In an instant, the air around them seemed to grow heavier, as if a weight was pressing down on the very walls of the room. The agents stepped closer, their hands subtly moving to their weapons. It was clear they weren't here to talk. Sophia felt the darkness closing in, but she wasn't afraid. She had a power far greater than any weapon. She had the truth. Jesus is with me, she whispered under her breath, and he will protect me. Before anyone could react, a brilliant light flared up from her Bible, blinding everyone in the room. The agents froze, unable to move, their eyes wide with terror. The light enveloped Sophia, and she felt it, the divine power flowing through her, around her. The leader of the agents reached out, his hand trembling as he tried to push through the light. No, this cannot be. The light surged, and with it, a voice boomed, loud, clear, and filled with authority. You cannot stand against the will of the Almighty. Leave now or face the consequences. The agents, their faces drained of color, took several steps back. Their eyes locked on the light, as if it were a force of nature they could neither comprehend nor withstand. The leader, now visibly shaken, waved his hand frantically. This isn't over, he muttered, his voice a mix of fear and fury. We'll be back. The darkness will rise again. With that, the agents turned and fled, disappearing as quickly as they had arrived. The room fell silent. If you've been moved by the courage, faith, and the unyielding hope seen in these pages, now is the time to act. Comment below with your thoughts on how faith can guide us through the toughest challenges, and share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like this story and subscribe so you can follow the rest of this thrilling journey toward redemption. Together, we'll continue to spread the light. Let's keep the conversation going. Your engagement helps inspire others. Sophia let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, her body trembling. She could feel the divine presence recede, but she wasn't afraid. She had been protected. The light of God had shielded her from harm. Elon stood in stunned silence, his eyes wide. He had witnessed something extraordinary, something he couldn't explain. He turned to Sophia, his voice low. What just happened? What was that? Sophia smiled faintly. That was the power of God. The forces that oppose us will stop at nothing to maintain control. But they can never defeat the truth. Elon shook his head, still trying to process everything that had just unfolded. I've seen a lot in my life, Sophia, but this is something else. Sophia nodded. It's just the beginning, Elon. The darkness is rising and the world needs you now more than ever. You have a role to play. You have the power to change the course of history. Elon was silent for a moment. How do you know all this? How do you know what's going to happen? I was shown, Sophia said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. Jesus gave me a vision of the world in chaos, of nations falling, of destruction, of war. But he also gave me hope. He gave me a message for you. Elon raised an eyebrow. For me? What could he possibly want with me? Sophia's eyes locked onto his, her expression serious. He wants you to lead. He wants you to use your vision, your innovation to unite the world, to lead humanity through the darkness. You're not just a businessman, Elon. You're a chosen leader in this time of great need. Elon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words sink in. He had always believed in technology, in progress, in changing the world. But what Sophia was telling him, what she had shown him, was something far beyond technology. It was something spiritual, and as much as he tried to deny it, he knew she was right. The world was changing, and he, of all people, had the power to shape its future. The days following the encounter with the agents were a blur. Elon sat in his office, staring at the screens that flickered before him, his mind racing. The world had felt like a chaotic mess for as long as he could remember, but now everything had changed. The forces Sophia spoke of were real, and their reach was far deeper than he'd ever imagined. Sophia sat across from him, her Bible still in her hands, her gaze steady. She had come to him with a message, a vision. And now the weight of that message was pressing down on him harder than ever. She had warned him of the coming storm. A storm of destruction, of violence, of war. He had to act, but where would he even begin? You don't have to do this alone, Elon, Sophia said, her voice calm but firm. We need to prepare. Elon snapped out of his trance. Prepare? For what, a war? Yes, she nodded, her face grave. A war, but not just any war. A spiritual war. a battle between good and evil, and the world needs leaders like you, people who are willing to stand against the darkness." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Elon had always been a visionary, but this was something else. This was more than just innovation and progress. This was survival. Suddenly, the door to his office burst open, and a man in a dark suit rushed in, his face pale with fear. "Mr. Musk, we've got a problem." Elon looked up, startled. "What's going on?" The man handed him a tablet. The screen displayed a news report, "World leader assassinated." Elon's heart sank. He knew the significance of this moment. This wasn't just an isolated incident. This was a sign. The world was slipping into chaos. The darkness was beginning to take hold. "What do we know?" Elon asked. The man cleared his throat, his voice shaking. "It's happening across the globe, sir. Political leaders, religious figures, leaders of all kinds are being targeted. There's no pattern, no motive. It's like someone is systematically taking down the people who could stop whatever's coming." Sophia's face tightened. "It's begun. The forces of darkness are striking one by one. They're trying to eliminate anyone who stands in their way." Elon clenched his fists, his mind racing. The future of the world was on the line. He couldn't let this continue. He had to act. "We need to unite the world," he said, his voice steady but determined. "We need to bring the leaders together. We need to form an alliance, a coalition of the willing, to stand against this." Sophia nodded, her eyes glowing with conviction. "It's not just about technology. It's about faith. It's about humanity coming together under the will of God. We need to spread the message." The world seemed to be unraveling faster than Elon could process. News of assassinations spread like wildfire. Governments were on edge, their leaders in hiding or trying to maintain control amidst growing unrest. The spiritual war Sophia spoke of was no longer a far-off concept. It was happening now. Elon and Sophia worked in silence for hours, reviewing data, coordinating with contacts, trying to piece together the truth behind the attacks. They had to get ahead of whatever was driving this chaos. "Everything points to one thing," Elon said, staring at the map of the world that covered the wall. "This is coordinated. Someone or something is behind all of this." Sophia's brow furrowed. "The forces of darkness aren't just trying to create chaos. They're trying to weaken humanity's resolve. They want to break us. They want us divided. And they'll do anything to make sure the message never reaches the masses." As if on cue, a figure appeared at the doorway, his face shadowed. A man in his early 40s, wearing the attire of a priest, stepped into the room. His presence was commanding, yet there was a weariness in his eyes. He was Father Gabriel, an ally Sophia had called in. A man of faith, but also one with ties to the global church network. "Father Gabriel," Sophia said, her voice filled with relief. "What news do you bring?" Father Gabriel's eyes were filled with concern. "It's worse than we thought. The church has been infiltrated. Key figures within the Vatican are compromised. There are whispers of a powerful group, more like a secret society, working from the shadows to control the narrative, to manipulate global events." Elon looked up, his curiosity piqued. "A secret society?" "Yes," Father Gabriel confirmed. "They call themselves the Order of the Fallen. They believe that the world must be remade, destroyed, in order to rebuild it according to their twisted vision. They see themselves as the enlightened few, the chosen who will bring about a new world order. And they're working to suppress the truth, to bury the message of Jesus Christ before it can reach the masses." Sophia's face hardened. "They want to control the world's faith, to eradicate the light of Christ. They can't be allowed to succeed." Elon stood up, a sense of urgency driving him. "Then we have to stop them. We have to bring the truth to light." Father Gabriel placed a hand on Elon's shoulder. "You're not just fighting for humanity's survival. You're fighting for their souls. You must know this is a spiritual battle." Elon nodded, though the weight of his words felt heavier than anything he had faced before. He had always fought for innovation, for progress. But now, the fight was something much larger. It was about faith, redemption, and the future of humanity itself. "We'll need help," Elon said, looking at both Sophia and Father Gabriel. "We can't do this alone." The days that followed were filled with strategy, prayer, and the gathering of those willing to stand up to the rising tide of darkness. Sophia, Father Gabriel, and Elon traveled across the globe, meeting with religious leaders, scholars, and activists. They formed alliances with those who still believed in the power of faith and the message of Jesus Christ. In South America, they met with Archbishop Andres Lopez, a man whose devotion to the Lord was unwavering. In Europe, they found support in the form of Pastor Esther Muller, a woman whose ministry had led thousands to salvation. In Africa, they joined forces with a network of pastors who had already been fighting the forces of evil in their own communities. As they journeyed from one place to another, the message of hope and salvation began to spread. More people began to believe in the possibility of a united world, one founded on the principles of love, faith, and truth, But the dark forces were relentless. They had spies everywhere, working to undermine the efforts of those who sought to oppose them. It was a constant game of cat and mouse, evading assassination attempts, sabotaging their efforts, and spreading disinformation. But Sophia, Elon, and their growing coalition of believers were determined. They had to stay one step ahead, to outwit the forces of darkness, and to continue spreading the message of hope. It was only a matter of time before the final confrontation would come. Elon, Sophia, Father Gabriel, and their allies knew it. They had to take the fight directly to the heart of the enemy. The forces of darkness were closing in, and only one final battle would decide the fate of the world. The team gathered in an underground bunker, a hidden sanctuary, where they had prepared for the final assault. The plans were drawn, the weapons were in place, and the prayers were ready. "Are you ready?" Sophia asked, her voice soft but firm. She looked at Elon, who had become more than just a tech mogul. He had become a leader, a symbol of hope. Elon nodded. "I was ready the moment I learned what was at stake. Let's end this." With that, they began their journey to the heart of the darkness, to the place where the secret society's headquarters lay hidden. Their final battle would test their faith, their courage, and their resolve. Elon, Sophia, Father Gabriel, and their team had arrived at the outskirts of the enemy's stronghold. The landscape was eerily quiet, the calm before the storm. The compound in the distance seemed like an impenetrable fortress, dark, foreboding, and surrounded by a heavy fog that seemed unnatural. Sophia stood by the edge, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her thoughts were heavy, knowing the magnitude of what they were about to do. "This is it," she whispered. "The final stand. We have no idea what awaits us inside." Elon nodded, his mind racing. The dark forces they were up against were not just political, they were spiritual. It wasn't just about taking down a building or a structure, it was about confronting the very heart of evil itself. The Order of the Fallen had corrupted everything they touched, manipulating world events, silencing voices of hope, and spreading despair. But the worst part? They were not just operating in the shadows. They had infiltrated the highest levels of power, even to the very core of religion, convincing people that the message of Jesus Christ had no place in the modern world. "We need to move quickly," Elon said, breaking the silence. "I've already sent out the signal. We'll have reinforcements soon." At that moment, a sharp, hurried voice came over their communication device. "Elon, Sophia, this is Commander Kim. We've identified several high-level targets. They're being protected by a network of mercenaries. But there's also something I can't explain. A presence, something supernatural. It's as if the very walls of this place are alive." Sophia's face paled as she turned toward Elon. "What does he mean, a presence?" Elon swallowed hard. "We don't have time for questions, we need to act." Meanwhile, within the walls of the enemy stronghold, inside the compound, the leader of the Order of the Fallen, a man named Ambrose, sat in a dimly lit chamber. He was tall, imposing, and emanated a cold, calculating aura. His eyes glinted with an unsettling mix of intelligence and madness. Around him, several high-ranking members of the Order knelt, their eyes fixed on the dark symbols drawn on the floor. The room was filled with an oppressive, heavy air, a feeling that seemed to press against the chest, making it hard to breathe. "My brothers and sisters," Ambrose began, his voice like velvet over steel, "we stand on the precipice of a new world. The old ways are obsolete, the teachings of Christ empty. He was just a man, and now the time has come for us to assume control. Soon, the world will bend to our will. But there is a threat. Musk and his followers are coming. They will try to stop us." A murmur of unease spread through the gathered members. "Do not fear," Ambrose continued. "Their faith is weak. Their hope is fleeting. The world is ripe for destruction, and I will ensure that it falls into our hands." As the team moved deeper into the compound, they encountered more resistance. Mercenaries lurked around every corner, armed and ready for the fight. But Elon, Sophia, and Father Gabriel were not alone. They were joined by a group of trusted individuals who had sworn their lives to the cause, each one having their own reason to fight. One of the newest additions to the team was a former soldier, a woman named Riley Jones. She was a force to be reckoned with, sharp, focused, and a master of hand-to-hand combat. After the destruction of her village by forces loyal to the Order, she had sworn vengeance. Her family had been lost, but she had found a new purpose. "Elon, Sophia, I'm ready," Riley said, her voice low but filled with determination. "We can't waste time. The longer we wait, the more people will suffer." "We won't wait any longer," Elon said, his voice steady, but a fire burned behind his eyes. "We're taking this place down today." Father Gabriel stepped forward, holding his Bible high. "Remember, we are not just fighting flesh and blood," he said, his voice carrying an unshakable faith. We are fighting the darkness that has consumed this world. We are the light. We must bring it to those who are lost." The team nodded, their resolve hardening. They could feel the weight of the mission on their shoulders, but they also felt something else, something greater. The belief that they were doing what was right. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for truth, for redemption, for the very soul of the world. The team reached the inner sanctum of the compound. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, the air thick with a sense of dread. They could feel the presence of evil pressing against them, testing their resolve. Riley led the charge, clearing the path with surgical precision. Elon, always thinking ahead, used his tech to disable the security systems. Sophia and Father Gabriel prayed, their words an anchor to hold them steady as they moved forward. They were close now. As they entered the heart of the compound, they were met with Ambrose himself, his cold eyes fixed on them with malice. "So, the prodigal son returns," Ambrose said, his voice like honey, smooth but poisonous. "Elon Musk, the great savior of the world. But you don't understand. The world is mine now. The pieces are already in place." Sophia stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "You think you can control the world with fear, Ambrose? You think you can snuff out the light of Christ? You're wrong." Father Gabriel raised his Bible, his voice booming. "The truth will set us free, and no dark force can ever overcome the light of God." Ambrose sneered, "You're foolish. The hour is late. Your God is weak, and the destruction of humanity will be my triumph." Suddenly, the air in the room shifted. It became electric, heavy with a sense of a cosmic struggle. The forces of good and evil were about to collide in a battle like no other. The battle was fierce. Ambrose summoned a dark power, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The ground shook as if the earth itself was writhing in agony. But Elon and his team stood firm. Their faith was their shield, and their determination was their sword. Sophia's prayers rang out like a battle cry, and Father Gabriel spoke words of salvation and strength. "Elon, this is it," Riley said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to finish this." Ambrose grinned, his twisted form growing stronger. But just as it seemed like the darkness would overwhelm them, something miraculous happened. A light, pure and blinding, descended from above. It filled the room, driving back the darkness. It was the light of Jesus Christ, and with it came a sense of peace. Peace that was more powerful than any weapon. "Elon!" Sophia cried, her eyes wide with awe. "It's him! It's Jesus!" In that moment, the power of darkness was shattered. Ambrose screamed in terror, his form dissolving into nothingness as the light overwhelmed him. As the dust settled, Elon and his team stood victorious, but weary. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Several of their allies had fallen in the fight, their lives sacrificed in the name of salvation. Sophia dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Lord," she whispered. "We couldn't have done this without you." Father Gabriel nodded. "It's over. The forces of darkness have been defeated, but we must rebuild. We must share the message." Elon stood quietly, his mind racing. He had played his part, but he knew that the true battle had just begun. The world had been saved, but now it was up to humanity to embrace the light, to live according to the teachings of Jesus. The victory wasn't just about defeating Ambrose or the Order of the Fallen. It was about healing the world, one soul at a time. The years that followed the victory over Ambrose and the Order of the Fallen were a testament to resilience and the enduring power of faith. The world had been brought to the brink of destruction, but from the ashes, a new world began to emerge, one rooted in hope, unity, and spiritual renewal. Elon Musk, once a man driven by technology and innovation, had become something much greater. His eyes had been opened to a higher purpose, one beyond the world of machines and rockets. He spent much of his time traveling to places of suffering and despair, bringing messages of faith and redemption. He was no longer just a businessman. He had become an ambassador for the light, a beacon of hope in a world that had been torn apart by darkness. Sophia, ever by his side, was a force in her own right. Her prayers had guided them through the darkest moments, and her faith had been a shield for the weary. She had become a symbol of hope for the millions who were searching for something greater than the world they had once known. Together, they had built a foundation for a new world, one where people could live with purpose, guided by the teachings of Jesus Christ. Father Gabriel, who had once been a quiet figure of faith, had grown into a powerful voice of spiritual leadership. He traveled from church to church, from city to city, delivering messages of truth and redemption. His words, backed by the divine strength of God, had inspired thousands to return to their roots, to seek the light that Jesus had promised. He often spoke of the great battle they had fought and won, reminding the people that the fight was not over, it had only just begun. The world was healing, but the scars of the battle were still fresh. The memories of destruction, death, and darkness lingered in the hearts of those who had lived through the chaos. But in the midst of the pain, there was a new sense of unity. People from every corner of the earth were coming together, driven by a shared belief in the power of good. The divisions that had once torn the world apart, political, religious, racial, began to fade as the light of faith united people in ways they had never imagined. It was in these moments of unity that the true meaning of victory was revealed. The battle against evil had been won, but now the task was to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't just about tearing down the walls of corruption. It was about rebuilding the hearts and minds of the people. It was about showing them that love, compassion, and faith could overcome any darkness. And so, Elon, Sophia, Father Gabriel, and their allies continued their work. They didn't seek glory or recognition. They didn't need the accolades or the fame. Their purpose was simple: to spread the message of Christ, to show the world that salvation was possible, and to bring light to those who still walked in darkness. One day, as Elon stood on a balcony overlooking a city that had once been ravaged by the forces of evil but was now thriving in the light of faith, he felt a peace he had never known. The weight of the past was still heavy on his shoulders, but the future looked bright. The world was healing, and with each passing day, more souls were being saved. He knew that the journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Sophia stood beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. "We've come a long way," she said softly, "but there's still so much to do." Elon smiled, his gaze steady and filled with purpose. "Yes, the work never ends, but we've made a start, and together we can change the world." As they watched the sun begin to set, casting its golden light over the city, Elon and Sophia knew that the world had been given a second chance. It wasn't perfect, and the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they had faith that the light would continue to shine through, no matter how dark the night seemed. Father Gabriel, who had been standing nearby, approached them with a smile. "The Lord's work is never done," he said, his voice filled with conviction, "but I believe we've laid a strong foundation for future generations." Elon nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Yes, Father, and we will keep building on it. We'll keep fighting for the truth." As they stood together, watching the world heal around them, they knew that their mission was not just about saving the world from evil. It was about making sure that the world never forgot the light of Christ. For as long as they had breath in their bodies, they would fight to spread the word, to bring salvation to those who had lost their way, and to ensure that the message of love, peace, and redemption would never be forgotten. The light had triumphed over the darkness, but the battle for the hearts of humanity was far from over. And as long as there was breath, as long as there was life, they would continue to fight for the truth. For they knew the greatest weapon of all wasn't technology, money, or power. It was faith, the unshakable belief in the goodness of God, and the promise that no matter how dark the world became, the light would always prevail. If you were inspired by this story of faith, hope, and redemption, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your friends and loved ones, and spread the message of light. Comment below with your thoughts, and remember to like and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire change, bring hope, and help rebuild the world one story at a time.